Do we really choose plastic surgery? Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I have a few videos already on my channel talking about celebrities and plastic surgery, but I've had a few epiphany moments and I wanted to share those with you. So when I bring up celebrities and plastic surgery and how they influence the beauty standard, one of the common pushbacks I get from people is, you know, these celebrities can do what they want with their bodies, their body, their choice, all this kind of stuff, and that if people are influenced by celebrities and decide to get the plastic surgery, then that's on them, and that they should take accountability for their actions, because everybody loves to scream accountability and pretend that media manipulation is not a real thing and all that kind of stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about the concept of media manipulation and how it influences the beauty standard and what these plastic surgeries can do. I want to give a little example, and this is not plastic surgery or necessarily even beauty standard related, but it's just an example of the influence that our surroundings can have on us. The idea that we are not influenced by the things around us is actually pretty crazy. So when people just say, okay, everybody has to take accountability for their own actions and their own choices and things like that, it's not that that's not a valid statement, except that we tend to leave out how easily we are manipulated by our surroundings and the messages we get from our surroundings, especially when we're young. It obviously can happen at any age, but I think especially when we're young, we're even more influenced by our surroundings. I'll use this example. Where I grew up, I lived in a very towny city, kind of pre-internet. The internet was just kind of happening. Yes, I'm old. I get it, whatever. Like where I grew up, if you owned a Coach bag, it's like you were a snob. Who the hell does she think she is with a Coach bag? Like that was high end where I grew up. So after college, I ended up moving closer to a major city, and I ended up working in this very upscale retail store, and most of the women I was around, the women I worked with, were all used to being closer to a big city and closer to luxury brands and things like that. And the place where I worked, Coach was low end. That was the low end of the luxury brands that we sold. In fact, I even remember a girl I worked with seeing a woman carrying a Coach bag one time, and she looks at me and she's like, oh my god, Coach is so high school. And I remember being like, you had Coach in high school? When I was in high school, I carried my mom's hand-me-down purse from Caldors, which if you don't know what store that is, it means you probably are not in your 40s from New England, but that's a whole other story. Again, it was a random department store that doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, designer bags in high school where I grew up and the time period I grew up in, not a thing. It just wasn't a thing. But here all of a sudden, let's say I was 22 around this time period. I'm working in this very high-end retail store surrounded by girls who all grew up where their families were buying them luxury brands their whole life. And honestly, I worked there for about a year. And in that time period, because I was so immersed in luxury brands and people that normalized the idea of buying luxury brands, I actually forgot that there were things in the world that were a reasonable amount of money. It really does start to retrain your brain to think oh, 90 bucks for a regular cotton t-shirt, that's normal. It's not normal, but if that's what you're surrounded by and you're surrounded by people that think that way, you start to think that way. Even if your whole life you've been told to think differently, if you're immersed in a world where everybody around you starts thinking a certain way, it's so easy to get caught up in that. I remember actually going shopping at another high-end retail store with one of the girls that I worked with, and she convinced me to try on a pair of $400 heels, which honestly back then $400 for a pair of heels was nowadays some of you might be like, oh, $400 for a luxury pair of heels, that's nothing. But those were the most expensive shoes I'd ever had on my feet before at that point in time. And I put them on and I was like, these are the most painful things I've ever had on my feet before. I would never wear these. And she's like, oh my god, they look so good on you, and $400 is the bargain. And I'm like, and I did not buy the shoes. But again, you're in that world and people are like, oh, you look so great, or this is great, or this is normal, or whatever, and you really get caught up in that. And sometimes I would go back home and I would get this jolt of reality of oh, okay, so not everything costs a ridiculous amount of money. You can go to a normal department store. But my point being, when you get immersed in a world, and if you are constantly getting messages around you from the people around you that are normalizing something, you start kind of forgetting that there is another way of thinking. I mean, that's very easy, and especially when you're young. When I see people that say oh, if you're so influenced by celebrity plastic surgery, or you're so influenced by the celebrity beauty standard, like that's on you. Like the more we get bombarded with this stuff and the more it's normalized, the more we like forget that things aren't always that way. The fact that, and it's been going on for a long time, but like, I'm gonna tell you, almost every celebrity has a nose job. If you see a celebrity, I can guarantee you 99% of the time, not their real nose. And again, I know people are gonna say, it's their choice if they wanna change their nose. Now, was it their choice, or were they told they had to change their nose or else they weren't gonna get work? Now, was it their choice to go ahead and do that? Maybe, but if somebody tells you like, hey, anything that you've ever wanted in life can't happen unless you get the nose job, people are going to be inclined to probably just get the nose job. However, the fact that every celebrity has like the same nose is going to influence everyday people to think that that nose is the only acceptable nose. And I've said this before too, like they didn't have like, I didn't have social media when I was a kid growing up, so they certainly didn't have social media filters or anything. Like celebrities were still getting nose jobs back then, but you weren't seeing like, you know, like Instagram filters or things like that when I was growing up. And like, I've never been self-conscious about my nose. Like my nose is my nose. I think it's proportional to my face. Never been self-conscious about it. Always been fine with it. Not something I spent a lot of time thinking about. But like when the filters started coming out on social media and stuff, like every time you'd put on a filter on your face, it would like shrink my nose. And after a while, I'd start to be like, why do these filters think there's something wrong with my nose? I don't think there's anything wrong with my nose. So why do they keep shrinking my nose? As a grown woman, when this stuff came out and I was older and I've come to terms with my nose, like I'm fine with it, I don't care about it. But I could totally see myself, like younger me, younger insecure me, using these filters and starting to think, wow, there probably is something wrong with my nose because these filters keep shrinking my nose. I can see where that would influence young girls and any honestly women of any age. I mean, I think, you know, for me when it comes to noses, I'm not that self-conscious about it. It hasn't affected me that much, but I could very easily see where it could affect a lot of women. It just becomes normal. It becomes like this is what you have to do in order to be considered attractive. When you start giving everybody the same nose, which isn't a nose that's going to look good on everybody's face, and then of course once people get, like rhinoplasty is one of those procedures that people tend to get frequently, like they get it a lot, because once you start messing with one part of your face, you have to keep adjusting it because your face never looks the same. And then of course you tend to have to get like other surgeries because once you've changed your nose proportions, it doesn't necessarily suit the rest of your face. And I mean, that turns into a whole rabbit hole where then people start getting their entire faces reconstructed. And that's just a nose. Like it's just the thing you smell with, right? But I had another epiphany moment when I was on TikTok scrolling one day, and I probably because I'm old or something, or maybe because of something I looked up, I have no idea why TikTok sends me the things that they do. But every once in a while, it'll start sending me videos and clips of like stuff like top songs from the year 2000 or like top songs from 20 years ago. These were the hits of 2005 or whatever, something like that. And they'll show like little clips of like music videos. And like sometimes I'll watch those videos, probably why they send me more of them. I get nostalgic. I'm like, ooh, I remember this song. But sometimes I'll see the clips of the music videos and a lot of them are hip hop. Hip hop was major at that time. But I started to notice that like even though like in that time period in the 2000s, like hip hop was huge. It was very mainstream. It was very like mixed with pop culture and stuff, but it was very much about the booty. And you had a lot of songs that were about, you know, women with big butts and stuff. But even in those music videos, if you look at like the video girls in those music videos from like the early 2000s, like even some of them who were a little bit more pear-shaped, who had a little bit more of a booty or whatever, and they all had beautiful bodies and nice butts and everything, but their butts were not gigantic. Like they were not this insane minuscule waist with like these giant hips and butt. They were not these exaggerated BBL bodies. They were beautiful women that had nice butts, but most of them had very proportional butts with the rest of their body. And it actually kind of like was jarring to me to be like, oh my God, these are women with like natural, real size butts. They're not these like exaggerated BBLs. And again, I know there's gonna be women out there who are gonna say, oh, there's women out there that have like a natural BBL body. Not really. I mean, yes and no. Like there are women that have more pear-shaped bodies. There are women that have, you know, smaller waists and wider hips. Like that happens, of course. The fact that like every woman you see now, like in the media, music videos and things like that, all have this like minuscule waist and these like giant hips and butt and then these skinny legs. Women didn't all of a sudden start having that body type. Like the fact that in the early 2000s, like even in hip hop videos that were talking about women with big butts, the women that had bigger butts had very proportional sized bodies. It's interesting because like I know like Kim Kardashian oftentimes gets labeled as the celebrity that like made big butts popular, and I do think she's kind of the one that made it stick. But like from my perspective, having grown up in that time period that went from like the 90s skinny to then like the more like curvy bodies and stuff, I really believe that the celebrity that made big booties mainstream, like in the media, I'm sure there were other, like there's a lot of people that take credit for making big butts popular. I think the celebrity that made it really mainstream was J-Lo. And if you look at J-Lo throughout her career, and I'm sure at this point in time she's had work done because like every celebrity's had work done, but if you look at her from like her Fly Girl days to, you know, when she was in Selena and when she was a pop star in movies and stuff like that, like she's always had a proportional body. She's obviously pear-shaped. She's always been beautiful. Like say what you want about J-Lo. I know she's kind of a popular person to hate on right now, but like she's beautiful. Again, I'm sure she's had work done now at her age at this point in time, but like early on in her career, it's like, yeah, she made having a big butt popular, but she had a proportional body. Her waist was small, but it wasn't like freakishly small. Her hips were wider and her butt was bigger, but not like freakishly so. And she also had like really solid legs, and she obviously had some muscularity from being a dancer and things like that, so that you didn't look at J-Lo and go just like, whoa, that's jarring. Like it was unique because she wasn't the stick thin model that we had seen in the media before, but it wasn't this like, that's weird, why does her body look like that kind of thing. But like Kim's body, the fact that there's like really no pictures of like a young Kim so that you actually see like how her body has developed. I mean, I think Kim's body's probably always been fake. She might naturally be pear-shaped, I don't know, but at this point, I don't really buy that her body is like naturally as exaggerated as it actually is. But it literally normalized having this exaggerated body type for the rest of us. As time went on and people started to emulate that exaggerated look, I gotta admit, like it makes it feel like, oh, well, that's how everybody is supposed to look. Now, I understand that there's a lot of women who are like, well, at least it's not that stick thin, straight up and down, like no shape kind of like model look that was popular in the 90s. Now women are allowed to have curves and things like that. It's like, yeah, look, I'm all for us embracing all women's body types. However, we're not really embracing all women's body types. We pick a body type, usually one that is unattainable to the majority of people, but we change it up every once in a while so that women basically have to spend a whole lot of money and time and effort trying to get that look. So like the vast majority of women do not have a natural BBL body type. And I know people are gonna argue, no, some people do. Oh, it's popular in different ethnic cultures. No, because you're seeing women in all different ethnic cultures getting these BBLs, so it's not the norm. In the same way that I would argue that the straight up and down stick figure supermodel look, not normal for most people. There's very few women that actually can pull that off in a safe way without doing a lot of harm to themselves. And you could argue that, you know, the things you have to do to be like underweight skinny for most people is dangerous, as well as getting BBLs are dangerous. It's the most dangerous plastic surgery that you can get. These things are dangerous and women are forced to do them just to fit a beauty standard. I'm all for embracing all women's natural bodies, but, literally but, we start to normalize that these body extremes are what people look like. The more that you get shown these things, I mean, I, even as an adult, was starting to feel like, how is everybody getting this hourglass figure? Like, how do all these women do this? Like, why all of a sudden is this like insanely tiny waist and these giant hips and butt popular? And I know some people are gonna argue that like, okay, well, it wasn't the beauty standard before, so women that have that body type are more likely to be, you know, show it off and be, you know, open about having that body now because it's more acceptable as the beauty standard. Yes, but the normalization of it, where now all of a sudden everybody has that body type, I mean, that's the result of plastic surgery. And it's like, I know people are gonna say, well, if you choose that, then that's your choice. It's like, well, yeah, but did you you really choose that, or did you feel like you had to do that because that was the only thing that was considered attractive? I mean, in the same way that all the skinny talk stuff is coming out and this, like, you know, again, we're getting back to that like stick figure, you know, like sickly thin kind of a look. And it's like, are you choosing that, or are you doing that because that's now the beauty standard? Because you're getting bombarded with these images. I mean, I gotta say, one of the more disturbing trends I'm seeing right now, which I thought that like the BBL surgery thing was like a disturbing trend in itself, and I still think that it is, and it's dangerous, but like I'm seeing this trend online of like body transformation photos. And like, look, I know some people are gonna say, oh, you're just jealous, whatever. Like, I am at a point in my life where my weight has fluctuated so much that, you know what, as far as I'm concerned, like everybody's journey is their own, so I'm not jealous of somebody else's journey. So I don't find body transformations like triggering. However, I am seeing a trend, particularly with young women. And again, if your body transformation is like you were unhealthy and you got yourself to a healthy weight and size, I will be the first person to applaud you. I'll be the first person to celebrate you. Like, more power to you for making healthy choices in your life. I'm proud of you. But I'm seeing this disturbing trend, particularly with really young women, of like these before and after photos. And the before photo is a very normal, healthy size, beautiful woman. And the after photo is scary. Like, it looks unhealthy and like in some cases sickly. And it's really, really unsettling, because health should not make you look sickly. And if your before photo is an absolutely like healthy size, beautiful woman, and you end up feeling like you have to starve yourself to be this other beauty standard that's actually not healthy, like that's a problem. I know that people are gonna say, well, it's your choice, it's their choice to do what they want, but it's like, are they choosing it, or are they being told that they have to do this in order to be loved, accepted, be seen as beautiful? That's the problem with the beauty standard, is that as women, we don't really choose it. Like, it gets put on us, and then when we do choose to follow it and we end up with negative consequences like health issues or botched surgeries or things like that, it's like, well, you chose it. It's like, well, we didn't really choose it. The beauty standard was put on us. We chose to follow it, but are we really making the choice when we're basically told that if we don't follow the beauty standard that we won't be loved and we won't be accepted in society, and we're constantly shamed for it? Like, is that really a choice if people are shamed into negative behaviors because they don't fit this ridiculous beauty standard that is put on us as women? And some things always stay the same. Like, skinny will always be popular. There will always be celebrities that are skinny. Sometimes curvier will become a thing, and then women will feel like they have to follow that trend, and they'll keep changing the beauty standard. But at the end of the day, like, there's certain standards, obviously. Like, skinny will always be in. Don't come for me and try to tell me you're skinny shamed, because it's not a thing, but whatever. Because there's always representation of skinny people in the media. Always. It may not be the only beauty standard, and you might have curvier, but curvier is never natural curves. It's always unnatural curves. You have to basically be skinny. Skinny is always the trend, but sometimes you can add a boob job or a BBL to skinny to make you look curvy. But like, natural curves are never the beauty standard. Why? Because for most of us, they're free. Except if you have naturally big boobs, you pay a lot of money in bras. Just saying. And I also don't want to hear all the women that want to talk about being shamed for having small boobs and this and that and blah blah blah, because the amount of time that like I get minimizer bra ads, like, it's insane. It's like literally the advertisements are shaming me. The constant minimizer bra things are insane. It's like, please stop with those ads. I don't want to minimize these. I've learned to accept them. I've learned to love them. I've had to carry these around my whole life. I have back pain and shoulder dents and stretch marks. So you know what? I've earned showing these off. I've been carrying them around since I was a kid. Like, stop with the minimizer ads. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about it at all. Which, speaking of boob jobs, I had another revelation that came up actually. So, a little backstory. I don't typically like watch or listen to a lot of podcasts like consistently. Usually just like if a podcast has like an interesting guest or something like that or whatever, or like there's some that I go to when I'm looking for something just like to zone out to or something like that. But the podcast that I do listen to very consistently is the Girls Next Level podcast with Holly and Bridget from the Girls Next Door. Like, I'm not even a big reality TV fan. I haven't watched a lot of reality TV over my life, but the Girls Next Door was one of my favorite shows. I still watch it once in a while. Yes, I realize that it's very twisted with the whole concept, like looking back on it, of like Hugh Hefner and his multiple girlfriends, and like, yes, it's weird, but I gotta say, like, that show as a young person, and I'm like the same age as Holly, so being around the same age as them and stuff, and you know, if any of you did watch the Girls Next Door, maybe you know what I'm talking about, but that show itself I think was really big for me, because Holly and Bridget specifically, like, Holly was really into old Hollywood glamour, which was always my thing. Bridget was like unapologetically girly, which, I mean, this might sound weird to some people, and I don't know how everybody grew up in in their life, so there might be some people that don't have any idea what I'm talking about, but like, where I grew up, you weren't cool unless you were a tomboy. Like, you had to be a tomboy in the era I grew up in. So like, if you wanted to be girly, it was like looked down upon. It was just like, I actually had a guy on a date one time, I swear to God, who, like, I ordered like a cocktail and he just looked at me and was like, oh, that's a girl's drink. And I was like, you know, I am a girl. I kind of thought that was the appeal as to like why we were on a date, but like, maybe that's not what he was looking for. I don't know. But again, like, being unapologetically girly was like not cool. Like, it was not a thing that you were supposed to do. Like, you weren't supposed to like pink. You weren't supposed to like being girly. It was like looked down upon. Other people maybe culturally didn't experience that. I experienced that like a ton growing up. So when the Girls Next Door was popular, particularly with someone like Bridget, who was just like so unapologetically girly, like, I really appreciated that show, to be totally honest with you. The fact that she was into like crafting and baking and like girly stuff, and like that was not considered cool. It was considered super uncool at that time period. So I listened to their podcast consistently. And side note, because I know a lot of people are talking about Holly and her breakup from Zak Bagans, I guess is his name. I don't know. I'm not super into the paranormal community, although I do listen to Bridget's podcast, Ghost Bunny, because even though I'm not into the paranormal community, I'll probably watch anything with Bridget in it, which I do think is interesting, because I've heard Bridget say several times that like the paranormal community is so like bro-like, and she's had a hard time like getting shows and stuff and getting seen in that space because, you know, she's so girly and stuff like that. And I'm like, if somebody who's like not into paranormal stuff will watch because of Bridget and because she's so girly, I mean, I think people are missing an opportunity. I think she needs her own paranormal show. But like, she's got a podcast now, so I'm sure she's good. But like, I know Holly is going through this breakup with Zak Bagans, who I guess is the host of Ghost Hunters. Again, I don't really know. I remember first hearing that she was dating this guy, and I looked him up to find out who he was, and like, I immediately was like, no, not the guy. Like, I just like immediately got a bad vibe just like initially, and I've never seen a show with him, and I was just like, And honestly, like, I know there's all this stuff about he's cheated on her and this and that, like, not defending that at all, like, but I do want to make a note that it does feel like in that situation that he had a lot of red flags, that Holly saw a lot of red flags in him and was ignoring them. And I just would like us to normalize, ladies, like leaving the first time there's a red flag, and like not consistently giving a guy a chance, because it seems like she was kind of like giving him a chance, and she was like, you know, justifying a lot of his behavior. He had a terrible reputation apparently before she started dating him. Like, I think we just need to normalize like guys like that, like, just be done with them right away. Don't waste our time. He's still the scumbag. I'm still Team Holly, but I would like women to learn from this and be like, you know what? If he walks like a douchebag and he talks like a douchebag and he acts like a douchebag, he's a douchebag. Just don't bother with him. Leave him alone. And I actually was listening to Holly and Bridget's podcast. I'm in their private group, so I don't know if this was something they talked about in their private group or not, or if this was on like their main podcast. Bridget and Holly were trying to get a paranormal show going for a while apparently, and Bridget was kind of like admitting that she thought that Holly's boyfriend was preventing them from getting their show picked up. And Holly was kind of like, no, I don't think so. I don't, like, she's still kind of defending him a little bit, even though I know she is like coming forward with his cheating, but she kind of was like, no, I don't know. And Bridget, like, you can tell Bridget was like pretty sure that he was keeping them from having a paranormal show. And I'm like, there's no reason why Bridget should not have a paranormal show. I'm gonna go on a rant for a minute, but like Like, I see so many women, again, I'm not in the paranormal world, but I know that there are so many women who like watched Bridget on The Girls Next Door and are like, oh my god, she was a Halloween girly, she was into the paranormal stuff, like she made it okay and cool for girls to be into that stuff. Like, I feel like Bridget's really like an icon in that space, and the fact that they aren't giving her own show, that she isn't being pushed considering her celebrity and how incredibly likable she is. Yeah, someone's been keeping her from really taking off in that space, and I don't know if it's him or not because I'm not in that world, but like, I wouldn't be shocked. Just saying. That's my little rant about that. But I've been going back and watching some of the Girls Next Door episodes because on Holly and Bridget's podcast, they kind of break down some of the Girls Next Door episodes and give some behind the scenes information and stuff. And so I was going back and watching them, and I had this kind of like epiphany moment because there's a theme on The Girls Next Door, because it was Holly, Bridget, and Kendra, if you're not familiar with the show. If you look at them visually, like next to each other, they have slightly different body shapes, but they're all about the same size. You know what I mean? But Bridget was always painted on the show as like the fat one. It makes no sense looking back on it, like that she would be considered the fat one, because first of all, she's not fat. Like, she's not even close to being fat. And she's the same size as the other girls. They just have different body shapes. But the show like always shows Bridget eating. Everything is about Bridget and food and Bridget eating and things like that. They really made her out to be the fat girl. And that's one of the aspects to media manipulation that I wanted to point out, is that if you just take a completely normal, healthy sized woman that is surrounded by other women who are pretty much the same size as her, but you constantly show her eating, you show her obsessed with food, you make it seem like she's the bigger girl, people start believing that she's the bigger girl when she's literally the same size as the other people around her. That's how easily we can be manipulated. Like, Bridget says even to this day, people come up to her and like, oh, you're so much smaller than I thought you were, because we were programmed to think she was the fat one. She was never fat. Which, first of all, they're not putting a fat woman in Playboy. She was in Playboy several times, and they were not going to put a fat woman in Playboy. Let's be real. But also, like, she got a TV show after The Girls Next Door, Bridget's Sexiest Beaches, where she was in a bikini traveling to all these locations, which I still love that show, and I have that show on DVD. I think I might watch it again now. But like, she was in a bikini all the time. They're not giving a woman who's the fat one a TV show where she's in a bikini all the time. They're just not doing it in the media. Like, I don't care. Like, especially in that time period, pre-body positivity, they weren't gonna do that if she was really the fat one. Let's be real. But I had this epiphany watching the show. And this was actually, if you're familiar with The Girls Next Door, this was actually the episode in the first season, I believe it's Just Shoot Me, where the girls are shooting their first pictorial for Playboy. The first time I really noticed it was actually in the scene, if any of you are familiar, it's like Holly, Bridget, and Kendra are lying like face down on this like pool floaty in the pool at the mansion. It's iconically where Holly is like singing the song like Butt Buffet. If you know the show, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know the show, you're probably like, what are you even talking about? That makes no sense. But if you notice, the three of the girls lined up together, and again, they're like the same size women. However, they have different body types. Kendra is clearly a very like straight up and down, like athletic body type. That's just her build. But she has implants, and she's admitted to having implants. I think she got them redone on the show and everything. So she has these like big fake implants. Holly has admitted that she's very naturally pear-shaped. She has wider hips and a wider butt, and that she got implants to even things out because she wanted a more hourglass look. She's been very open about that. Bridget has a very gorgeous and very proportional natural body. She doesn't have like huge boobs, but she has fuller boobs, and she has like a very natural waist and natural hips and butt. Like, she has like a naturally stunningly gorgeous figure. However, she's in a photo shoot with two women who are surgically enhanced, and they've all been open about that. But if you notice in this shoot, and it really stood out to me because as someone who is, I mean, I'm bigger than all of them bust wise, but I have a naturally large bust, that no matter how skinny I have ever gotten, like, and I've gotten myself pretty skinny, I still have back rolls. Like, no matter what I do, I have back rolls, and I can get myself to like about as skinny as I could safely get, and I still have back rolls. And I'm noticing in this particular scene that they're filming of Holly, Bridget, and Kendra, that Bridget has some back rolls. Now, she's not fat by any means, but she does have like a similar type roll that I get in my back. Now, in some of it, it's partly how she's posed, but also Holly and Kendra don't have that. Why don't they have that? Because Holly and Kendra have implants that are pulling the skin forward and pulling everything so tight in the front. Because Bridget doesn't have that. She doesn't have the implants that are pulling the skin tighter to pull everything to the front. She has like a natural curve in her back, which should be absolutely normal and human. But it gets labeled as the fat one simply because she has a naturally gorgeous body, but that's what a natural body is meant to do. Like, when you have naturally bigger boobs, your skin is not being pulled tight to the front of you, so you're gonna have a natural, like, I don't like calling it a roll, but you have a natural, like, your back does stuff naturally. That's the way backs are supposed to be. It's the same thing that I've talked about in other videos where, like, no matter how thin you get as a woman, you naturally have a roll when you sit. That's a natural part of the bend of your body, like the bend of your waist. But these girls that are getting these like super, super tight like BBLs and these lipo, and they're getting everything so tight and structured that when they sit, their body doesn't even have a natural bend to them. It's normalizing having an unnatural body. And a natural body, a natural, beautiful, gorgeous body gets labeled as being like fat or wrong, or it's different, therefore it's not the beauty standard, when it's naturally stunning, but the fake is now seen as the beauty standard, like not having a roll in your stomach or not having a roll in your back. It's considered normal when actually what's normal is having those things, because it's not normal to have like all of everything, your skin pulled so tight in certain places that your body doesn't do what a natural body is meant to do, which normalizes AI and normalizes fake women and plastic women and all kinds of stuff. And I've gotten into that in other videos. I'm not going to get into that now, but it normalizes that. And I have to admit, as much as I love Holly and Bridget, I love The Girls Next Door, because again, that show was, it was like so revolutionary for like a girly girl who was into old Hollywood stuff and like pink and crafting and stuff like that. And I think even for girls who were into things like Halloween and stuff like that, I mean, there were a lot of aspects to that show that I think for a lot of women we related to, because they got to be girls on the show, and society at that point in time was really glorifying the tomboy, which you kind of see in the fact that they're really pushing Kendra, making Kendra like the cool one and stuff like that. But I have always been very conflicted with the Playboy brand itself. And one of the things that I've noticed is it's very consistent. Not every single woman, but I'd say the vast majority of women that are associated with Playboy typically have some kind of story about like being a little girl and finding their dad's Playboys, being like, I want to look like these women, and then deciding that they need to look like these women. And you kind of have to ask yourself, if as a young girl you see these images of these women and you're told that these are women that men lust after, and you get told that this is what men want, and as women, and I understand there's a lot of women who are participating in the 4B movement and are like, I don't want men and I don't want to cater to men, and like, more power to you. But like, as young girls, I mean, as humans in general, we are designed to want to mate. We're designed to want to find a partner. And I understand there's people out there that are choosing not to, and more power to you if you do. But typically, especially as young girls, many of us are very deeply programmed to feel like, okay, we have to find a mate, we have to find a partner. And if we get this message that the women in these Playboy magazines are the beauty standard and they are what men want, and we now program ourselves to believe that this is what we have to look like in order for men to want us, because on a deeper level, As women, it's very deeply ingrained in us that if we don't partner with somebody, that we will not be protected, we'll be shunned by society and things like that. And again, I'm not saying that that isn't something that some women are choosing not to participate in, and I understand that, but it's still deeply ingrained in us as women, especially as young girls. If we're told that if we don't look like this, that we're not going to be loved and accepted, and then we end up growing up spending our lives trying to look like these women in this magazine, are we really choosing to look this way? Or are we being told from a young age that we have to look this way in order to be loved and accepted? Because at the end of the day, look, all of us as humans, we want to be loved and accepted. Like, let's be real. And I have a whole guided journal about how not to be a pick-me girl, so I'm not encouraging anybody to be a pick-me girl by any means. But like, deep down inside, most of us as humans, like, we're wired for community. We want community and connection. We want to find love. We want to find a partner. We want to find connection. Some of us may choose not to go that way, but like, at the end of the day, many of us really deeply want that. So if we get told, even as very young girls, that like, okay, you're only gonna get that if you look a certain way. And I'm sure it's gotten even worse because it's not just in the Playboy magazines that you find, like, you know, in your dad's closet or something. Now it's like all over social media and things like that. If you as a young girl are constantly being shown images of women that look a certain way, and you're being told that that's what it is that men want, and then as you grow up, you choose to try to look that way because you think that's the only way you're going to get accepted. Are you really making that choice? Like, is that really your choice, or have you been programmed and conditioned to believe that you have to do that in order to be loved and accepted in society? And I will also note that, I don't know who said this originally, but I remember there was a guy that came online and the video went viral where he basically said men don't like BBLs, they like naked women, and women with BBLs tend to be naked a lot. I think you could go further with that, and you could argue that whatever the beauty standard is in society, women that fit that beauty standard tend to feel more confident, so they tend to show off their bodies more, so they tend to attract more male attention, and so men tend to be drawn towards those women. Because it's interesting how, like, men were so obsessed with women that had like super curvy bodies, and now all of a sudden men are like obsessed with these like skinny women and are shaming any woman that's not like super skinny and things like that and whatever. And it's like, okay, did guys like all of a sudden just change what they were attracted to? No. But guys are going to be drawn to the women that show off their bodies more, and the women who are more confident are going to be the ones who show off their bodies more. I'm not saying that confident women don't sometimes cover up more or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, like, if a woman does fit the beauty standard, she's going to be more likely to wear a bikini, or she's going to be more likely to, you know, show off her body and stuff, and she's going to be less covered up. More likely. There are some women who are very confident and love their bodies and don't, and I know the whole modesty culture thing is back, and that's a whole other rabbit hole I'm not going to get into, but generally speaking, the women that are going to show off their bodies are going to be women that fit whatever the current beauty standard is. And men tend to just be drawn to whatever woman is showing off her body and giving those women attention. You could make the argument that when men say they don't like women that show off their bodies, it's like, well, then stop giving all the attention to women who show off their bodies, because if you keep rewarding women who show off their bodies and giving them all your time, money, and attention, you're feeding into the problem. There's that. And again, I'm not telling anybody to, you know, decide to fit a beauty standard or anything to please men, but like, unfortunately, that's oftentimes things start snowballing, because like the media will create a beauty standard, and the women that fit that beauty standard, or the women who make themselves fit that beauty standard, tend to start showing it off, and then men tend to be drawn to them because they're showing off their bodies more, and men tend to be drawn to women who are showing off their bodies. So the women get rewarded with male validation, and then it just perpetuates the cycle, is what it is. If you would like to break free from that cycle, I highly recommend you check out my Recovering Pick Me Girl guided journal, as well as my Dark Feminine Energy guided journal. They're both available on Amazon, and they will be really helpful for you to really just sort of tap into your own inner power and just kind of like reject the need for validation in society and things like that. So I highly recommend you check those out. I also have a lot of videos about like body image and things like that here on my channel, and other things about celebrities and plastic surgery, and you know, how the media influences our beauty standards and things like that. So I highly recommend you check out those videos. Again, these were just some like random thoughts about the beauty standard and plastic surgery and the normalization of it that just kind of came to mind, and I just really wanted to talk about. So yeah, if you have any other like topic requests or anything, let me know, or any thoughts on this video or anything in this video, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I love to hear from you and I love your suggestions. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. Honestly, any engagement on this video really does help to boost it in the algorithm so more people can get this message. You can check out my guided journals on Amazon. Links are in the description box below, along with links to courses, masterclasses, and all my social media accounts. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.